So, welcome everybody. Welcome to Rise Up CX Talk. So, this is the podcast where we uncover how to transform customer experience into sustainable growth. I'm your host, Camila Ferreira, an award winning CX leader and international speaker. And I am thrilled to guide you through insights and strategies that drive lasting success. Today, I have the pleasure to welcome Robert J. Hunt, the accountability guy. So, Robert, without any further ado, so please take the stage and let us know what you do and who you are, and what you do to drive better customer experiences.
Thanks for having me on your show. What I do for a living is I run CEO peer groups here in the DFW area. Been doing this for the last 12 years. And through all this, I've learned what leaders do well and what they don't do so well, and have been able to see the difference. And one of the things that I've been intrigued by is those who get the idea of customer experience, who actually think that this is part of what their whole business is about, versus the ones who think it's a department or an effort or an occasional review. And the difference is really dramatic. One encompasses everything they do, and the other one is just something that they always seem to be short of, that they're always chasing and they never really seem to get it right. And so by watching that over these years, I've really seen the value of having amazing customer experience. But that's a team effort. That's something everyone in the company has to contribute to. And it aligns with my passion for accountability, which is why we wrote the book, Nobody Cares Until You Do. It's about the accountability that we all need to run businesses where our team really truly owns it.
Oh, wow. My goodness. I'm sure we have a lot to learn from you. I personally love this topic of accountability. So just before the show, you and I were talking about it. And accountability makes a huge difference.
Mm.
And having 12 years supporting CEOs, I am sure that you have seen so many things where accountability is at the center of the decision making and when it's not, and the difference between the two. So in your view, Robert, why do you think that so many companies struggle with making CX a priority?
I think everyone just assumes that customer experience is just fine. And what is okay is the enemy of excellence. There's probably a different saying that goes with that, but a lot of times we go fit for use. That's good enough. It's working. Nobody's complaining. But just the fact that they're not complaining doesn't mean they're happy. Go back to the book Raving Fans, which is one of my favorites from many years ago, where they talk about this idea that your customers would brag about you, that they couldn't stop talking about you. We have those kind of experiences when we go to Chick-fil-A, or we buy certain items that we just love. We're huge fans of Apple products, or whatever things you would say, I just love these guys. But we think that just because nobody's complaining and we're not having big problems, that everything's great. And it's so wrong because, silence is that enemy that you don't know anything about till they leave. And customers will just leave without telling you. It's too much energy to complain. And in these days with everything being digital, you have to work really hard to be able to complain. You don't get to talk to anyone. You have to go find the place to complain. And we all kind of feel at this point that what's it going to do anyway? So quiet customers is not good. We want raving fans. We want ones that brag about us. So I think many companies just feel like they're doing just fine. And I think just fine is the problem. And we're just fine until we're not just fine. And then all of a sudden we realize, well, we got to fix this. Well, that was just one customer or one bad employee or one issue, but it's prevalent. We just don't hear about it enough. And I really want to work with people who say, hey, I have a vision of what I want my business to look like, how I want my employees to behave, how I want my customers to feel when they work with us. And you chase that. It's not that you fix the things that are complaining or broken. It's that you create something that you go chase forever. It's never done. Expectations get higher and higher. For whatever your customers want today, they'll want more later on. So this is an ongoing process that we have to chase forever. But I just think companies feel like it's good enough. Let's go work on getting more sales.
Oh my goodness, you are so true. Whenever customers are silent, it doesn't mean that they like the company, that they like the brand, the service, or the product. It's actually the other way around. Whenever they are silent is when you have to further investigate, right? And get to know what is behind that silence. So yeah. On the other hand, whenever they really like it, that's when you see brands getting popular. That's when you see product and services getting popular so quickly. And why? Because so the clients are telling the company that they like what they are buying.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And there's a little
So,
sticking power there too. Remember how hard it is to leave somebody. If you sign up to have, like I have Square is my point of sale that I use for selling the book. And I've had problems with Square for a year where the registered tracking records of the sales on the online on my computer are different than the ones that show up in the app. And they're not registered and they're not talking to each other. And I've chatted with them online a dozen times and never get it resolved. And it's so bad. And the customer service department is somewhere in another country. So the language barrier is a problem. And then on a regular basis, they'll say, okay, this has been resolved. And they'll just hang up the case. It has not been resolved. And there's nobody to talk to. I'm in this endless loop of trying to get this fixed. But you have no choice. I either have to take my business somewhere else, start all over, rebuild the website. So just because someone's stuck with you, it's so hard to leave you that they stay, even though they're miserable and frustrated. They're just waiting for someone out there who can just do a little bit better and they'll jump ship. So we have to realize that sometimes people stay just because they're stuck. That does not mean they're happy with their customer experience.
oh, absolutely. And you mentioned something that, again, I have led many support teams, and closing the ticket and moving on is not the right thing to do, right? I used to tell my team, so if you touch it, you own it, but you own it from the experience standpoint. You have to put yourself on your customer's shoes and realize and try to understand as best as you can what is the pain.
Yeah.
So, for example, in your case, you said that you have reported many times. So you should have a past record on your account that
Yeah.
this is a kind of a recurrent problem. And just don't close the case, right? Don't close the ticket. Let's make sure, because if you are experiencing this, Robert, most likely other clients are experiencing that too.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what we look at. When we look at it as just a one-off item, is it really? It's just the one person who took the time to actually come and talk to you about it. But you're right. There are probably many other people like that. And so if we don't fix it for this one person, we're probably not going to fix it for everybody else. And we're really just waiting until they find a better option.
Yeah. And that's what, whenever I say, right? So every problem can turn into a huge opportunity depending on how you handle it and how you face it. So in this case, there might be a problem with the reconciliation or something that sometimes you are doing wrong or the system is not operating well. We do not know. But if we do not investigate, we will never know.
Right.
But this is an opportunity to say, hey, this is happening to Robert, and this is not the first time. So let's double click here. Let's understand what is the actual root cause and fix this upstream. And then back to you, say, hey, Robert, you know what? We figured this out. So it was a problem in our system. Of course, you're going to understand problems happen. But for the other client, we're going to go and say, hey, you know what? So we have identified an issue here. If you experience this, let me tell you, it's already fixed. If you need any support reconciling, get in contact with us. Look at how different, how it changes with the way we treat and support clients. And this is accountability. Right? You take the ownership.
If you're doing this to the customer, you're probably doing it to your employees too. We always say what you do in the little things, you do in the big things. And so if you're not treating your customer with that kind of care, I would argue you're probably not treating your employees that way either. So there's something systematic about how we handle issues. We as a business owner, we don't have the money and time to fix everything. And we know there's going to be a turnover and we can't please everybody. People are fickle and have different desires. And we're just not going to make everybody happy. But to the best of your ability, you should be thinking and listening and hearing and updating and changing all the time. But we get overwhelmed. This is when you don't run your business well, everything that comes up is an annoying thing. But if you can proactively create the world you want, then you're driving the behavior that you want to see inside your company, which we hope will replicate itself out to the customer. But you got to understand that if you're doing something wrong to the customer, it's probably happened to your employees too. And this is going to cost you money on both sides of the table. So you really do need to address these things.
Absolutely. The cost of hiring, the cost of a kind of an employee attrition. And I used to say that employees are like kind of a kid, like babies. They kind of mirror what their parents do, and they do it. Employees mirror what their leaders in the company does, and they replicate it. So if you do not have a culture of experience within your organization, it's going to be harder for your employee to deliver a good experience because the employee doesn't know what it looks like.
That's right. That's right.
Right? Okay, so talking about that, how accountability at every level of leads do better customer relationships, in your opinion?
And the simplest definition of accountability means you own it. You said it earlier. You touch it, you own it, right? But I think we always feel like it's someone else's job. That's that department. That's customer service, or that's IT or HR. I mean, we always like to dump it into some bucket. But the reality is, we create a culture where everybody feels they're part of the solution because they are. And how you answer the phone at your company, and how you respond to an email that comes into the business, how you treat your suppliers that you work with, even investors, everyone has some kind of need. And if we as a whole team aren't really concerned about the journey, and I said investors, and I don't want to breeze by that too quickly, how you treat investors so they feel like this is part of the team. The world of investors today want an investment that's more than just money. They want to feel like they're part of the team. They want to feel like it's changing the world or serving the world or has some bigger value than just making more profits. And so how we treat our investors is a really big deal. But all these things are contributed by every single person on the company, from the one who unloads the truck when a supplier shows up, how you treat that supplier's driver, how you handle the paperwork, how easy it is to use this and placing orders. All those pieces, they're all part of that CS experience. And that can seem overwhelming and daunting to think I have to have a good process for every single thing I do. I get that. That's fine. We'll get there eventually over years and years of working on it. But if we have people who actually care, we call it the give a damn factor. If we actually had people who actually care, and we don't have a process that's that robust and perfect, but they care, they'll make up for it. So we really got to focus on our people. We have to proactively train and create this world that they live in, where they don't come to work and feel so much stress because their boss is screaming at them, their coworkers are stressful, and everyone's arguing with each other. How do they treat a customer, vendor, supplier, investor when they live in that world? So you, as the owner of your company, you have the opportunity to create a base of employees who will care for everything that goes on by the way they're treated. That's not coddling them. That is listening to them, challenging them, training them, investing in them, and expecting them to deliver. That's where accountability comes in. We don't create good accountability where we proactively create the world that we want to see. We just respond to everything. That's responsibility. Responsibility is different than accountability. When a problem comes up, you own it. Fine, you're responsible. But how could I have prevented the problem? That's accountability. We know people get tired. We know people go on vacation. So if we know that people are going to go on vacation, what are we doing to create a world where things don't fall apart when someone goes on vacation? What are we doing to create a world where people don't get overloaded? Because when they're overloaded, they make mistakes. So you, as an owner, you drive that world to create the customer experience where everybody's bought in and everybody owns it.
Oh, I love it. Yes, absolutely. I can't agree more with you. This has to be it has to be built based on the culture of the organization, and leaders must lead by example, right?
Yeah.
When you were talking, I was reminding myself of some meetings I used to attend at work, that we were there just to drive accountability or actually responsibilities to somebody else. Like, no. So if we are here, let's just strategize. Let's get to the root cause of the problem. Let's get things done, rather than just creating a meeting to put the responsibility on someone else, right? And this is part of the culture.
It's that whole idea where you walk by some piece of trash on the ground and you go, well, I'm not the janitor. Why would I pick that up? Well, do you want to work in a place full of trash? Do you want to work somewhere where someone slips on a piece of trash? I think when we create a place where people just are focused on, I got to do my job and get out of here, then we're not using their whole brain. People have so much to offer. And I would argue that every one of your employees could be more productive. Every single one could be more productive. They waste time in meetings they shouldn't be in. They waste time responding emails to things they shouldn't be arguing about. They waste time doing something because they're not really sure, so they do it the wrong way, which then we have to clean up and fix the other way. We're not proactively training. All the time that we take repairing mistakes that our employees make because they weren't properly trained or it wasn't communicated well. If we took that time and trained them and communicated up front, not only would that time would be at best equal, if not saved, but the customer wouldn't suffer underneath it. Other coworkers wouldn't suffer underneath it. So we're going to spend that time one way or another. You're going to either spend it fixing the problems, trying to resolve conflict, trying to clear things up, or you're going to proactively train against it and create what you want to see at the end. That is accountability.
Absolutely. And speaking of accountability, so tell us about your book. So Nobody Cares Until You Do. So what are the lessons? How have you come up with the book? So what drove you to write the book? I think that's a very interesting thing for our audience to know.
Yeah, I co-wrote it with my friend Salem Thine, who's a co-author, and together we tell stories that help people understand the principles of accountability. We share our own very vulnerable stories. My wife and I owed $90,000 in credit card debt, and it was ruining us. And we decided in 2019 we didn't like living the life that we were living, and we needed to change it. So through the book, we tell the story about how we took ownership, we took accountability for our lives, and we stopped blaming and make excuses and saying we can't do anything about it or just waiting to hope it gets better. Those are the four traps that people play a victim in their lives. And that is not where we're creating a world where people own it. So we're helping people be aware of the traps that accountability can hold us back as a victim. And you get to that place in your life where you go, wait, nobody cares. Nobody cares if you're fat, miserable, broke, unhappy in your marriage, hate your companies, hate your employees. Nobody cares unless you do. And when you care enough to do something about it, you own it and you can change everything. And that's what we did in our own lives. That's what Salem and I outline in the book about stories about where owning it, which is accountability, gave us the power to do the things that we really wanted to do. And so we called it Nobody Cares to get your attention and to let people know that truly nobody cares about all your problems unless you care enough to do something about it first. And then the balance of the book is helping you work on those things. It's like a workbook. At the end of every chapter, we give you something to do. We're not just teaching you philosophies. We want you to change your life. And it's working. People are reading it. Their lives are getting better. We're getting great feedback. We're very proud of the book.
Amazing. No, I love it because you combine your personal story with actionable um, insights, right? So people can start implementing right away. And I was thinking here, I love very much the 7 habits of a very efficient people. And the first one is being proactive, which is exactly what you said, right? So if I'm kind of in this situation in my life, at work, with my partner, whatever it is, and I can't stand this anymore, it's up to me to take the first step, right? And I am kind of in the transition from corporates to be an entrepreneur, and it was very much this. It's like, hey, what do I get from corporate? What have I lived here? And I'm very much kind of grateful for everything I did in corporate. But I realized that that environment was not the one that was making me as happy as I would like to be
Mm.
anymore. So I decided to transition. It's exactly this. So you take the ownership of your life, you take the accountability of your decisions. It's not an easy decision, it's not an easy transition. And that's why it has to be a self decision, right? Because you're going to have to deal with the consequences of what you do. So yeah, I love it. I love it. Definitely going to read the book and recommend it because accountability is something that I am passionate about. But let's switch gears a little bit here, Robert. So the next question I have for you is throughout your career, and particularly in the past 12 years, supporting and helping CEOs. So, what is the most common mistake you see people making in business?
Well, cash flow is one of the most common mistakes I see people not doing well. I think we don't allow ourselves to be accountable to other people, and so we end up spending money and doing things with our cash that really aren't prudent. Especially when you're smaller, it's nice to have a company where you can write off a bunch of things, and that's always fun. You know, deduct this and that, and that sounds great. But cash flow is what kills people. We get extended, we get a new client, we get a big project, we have to put a lot of money down, we have to hire people, all these things that drain our cash, and then our clients pay slow, and all prices are going up. All these things are changing all around us, but we're not changing our behavior. And when you're a business owner and you run alone without someone double checking you, challenging you, asking you questions, you fall into this fake mode of everything's going great until it isn't going great. And that's one of the reasons why CEOs are part of our groups because they'll come to the meeting and they'll say, here's what I'm going to do. I got this opportunity for this. And they'll outline what they're going to do. And we'll ask questions about, well, what's it going to cost? How long will that take? Do you have the support to do it? And we look at it from a different perspective. We're not emotionally attached to your idea. Sometimes we talk about it so much in our own brain that it sounds, this is the best idea ever. This is a great idea. And then we just start running down the road, but we really haven't thought about enough things. And then things bite us in the butt later on because we didn't plan ahead for it. So allowing other people to get into your world and to challenge you is very helpful to avoid those kind of pitfalls. You can't see it all. You don't know it all. The world's constantly changing. If you can't keep up with it. And just the tax laws, cybersecurity, and employment law is enough to keep you busy full time all day long. So then you have to also run the business that goes with that. So I think allowing other people to get into your business, allowing people to know the reasons behind what you make. Now, if you're really, really a transparent company and you have a leadership team and they're fully aware of why we're making decisions and where we're going and how we want to be on the way to get there, what's the ultimate goal, and you really, truly invite them in and communicate, great. But most people don't do that. They give them little bits of knowledge along the way because someone asked, and they don't want to talk about it because they don't really have a plan. They have an idea, but it's not a real plan. Like how long will that take, and what happens when it doesn't work, and those things. We don't want to deal with that stuff. Let's just go. And then all of a sudden things don't work out, and then we get angry, and everyone feels like we don't know what we're doing. So I think allowing people into your life is one of the best ways to avoid that kind of trap.
Oh, absolutely. So being an economist myself and having worked with finance for 10 years of my life, this is kind of a music to my ears, particularly when we deal with the small and medium businesses. So I do understand you are very much emotionally attached to your idea, to your service, to the solution that you offer, but this is not all, right? So on top of having a great idea, a great solution, you also have to manage a business, and those are completely different things. And sometimes you were very good at coming up with solutions, but not necessarily as managing business, or the other way around.
Yeah, the team has to do the work though for the ideas we come up with, right? So if we're not inviting them into the thought process and we go, here's a great idea, let's go do this, and then go. And you haven't taken and invited them into the thought process, and they're going, wait, this takes 6 months to integrate. This can't be done right away. And we have contracts. We have to honor the contracts we currently have, and then we have to maintain and all these other things that you don't think about because that's not your job. You're the dreamer, the visionary, you're the idea person, and you come up and you get it going. But then this whole team has to do it. So what do they feel like? They feel like, hey, I can't do what my boss wants me to. Hey, he's crazy. He keeps coming up with weird stuff. That she just randomly thinks of ideas and doesn't consider what it really takes. So they start to become jaded towards your ideas. And the next one you come up with, they're like, yeah, don't just ignore it. It'll go away in 6 months. And I worked at a place for about a year they were so jaded from the CEO who would come up with crazy ideas and go, hey, we're going to go do this. And the IT department would say, we've just spent the last year putting a platform together to go to market like this. And now you want us to go here. Yeah, forget that. Let's go here. And everyone became so jaded and so mistrusting because then 6 months later, he would come back and say, no, I figured let's not do it anymore. Let's go here instead. And so they all just kind of slowed it down and just said, well, let's just see how far it goes in this. And they would placate it. And so there wasn't any drive. There wasn't any effort to really do it because he had lost credibility with them. So we do need to keep involved in the process.
Oh, absolutely. And kind of reconciling this with customer experience. Look at the experience that this CEO in particularly is driving to their employees, to their teams. How can he or she expect that the team will deliver a good experience to the clients if every 6 months things are changing and they do not have visibility of where they're going to?
Right.
Right.
Yeah. The number one job of the CEO is to cast a vision that everyone can get excited about and follow. They're not the one to solve the problems. They're not the one to be in the weeds. They're the ones that come up with ideas and say, this is where we're going. This is the direction. Here's why. Here's how we're going to do it, basically. And you guys figure out a plan. And they create the opportunity and then get out of the way and let those leaders that you pay a lot of money for do their job. But you've got to empower them with enough detail to know where they're going.
Yeah, you got to bring people along to deliver on your dreams or on your vision, right? So one thing is, I do have a clear visibility of where we want us to be in a year, 5 years from now. Then the second thing, and that's what I used to say, the difference between an idea and success is execution. So you got to have a team that trusts you as a leader who sets the vision in order to deliver on that. Because that's exactly what is going to turn your great idea into success.
That's right.
It's the execution. Right. And along the way is the experience. So how are you treating the team? How are you bringing them along? Are you giving them voice? Are you kind of sharing the ideas? Because that's exactly what your customers is going to feel at the end of the day. Right?
Yeah, I agree.
Good. So in that regard, Robert, so what would you recommend? So you have a startup, a company that is just kind of going to market. What kind of actions that you would recommend to this CEO, to this leader, to start driving this culture of accountability right off the ground?
Yeah, you model it. You can't create a culture of accountability unless you're doing it first. And so the way you behave, the way that you are transparent with your team, we always say that accountability requires vulnerability. And if you're not going to be open and honest with your team, you don't get the value of why you hired them in the first place, to help them think ahead of time, not just respond to everything you come up with, but help guide and create alongside of you. But you're missing out the opportunity to get them going quicker because they don't really know what you're doing. And so if you can invite them in and say, this is what I want to do, and you put it in writing, because a lot of small businesses, they feel that they can just change their mind whenever they want, but it drives their employees crazy. And they sit around and they think, what's he going to come up with next? And so again, now that you're losing credibility with your team, and they're not working hard towards something because they think it's not going to last. But if you put it in writing, it's serious. If you all agree and you say, this is our goal, this is how we're going to do it, these are the things we're going to focus on, in writing. And then we set some KPIs, some measurables, and we review them monthly, weekly, whatever it takes to be driving in the way that you need to move through. Some things are daily, some things are weekly, some things are quarterly. But whatever they are that needs to be tracked and measured, we all know what it is. It's in writing, and we create the opportunity for accountability. Nobody can hold anyone accountable. I cannot hold you accountable, but I can create a world where you want to be accountable because I model it, because I'm accountable, and because I've done things to set up processes where there is accountability available. You could lie. You could say, yeah, I did it, and lie. I mean, that happens all the time. But if I see that our whole team is owning it and everyone is doing what they're supposed to be doing, and it's visible and we're talking about it and looking at it, it makes me feel peer pressure, which is really another version of accountability, is peer pressure. Because if you're going to come to a meeting and you're going to look stupid that you didn't do your job, and we don't let you just say, oh, I didn't get it done. We just light you up. Hey, this is a deadline. That's what we set this in writing for. And if we create a culture of accountability where everyone is owning it, then you'll feel the peer pressure to do your job and to do it well. That is how we create this environment together.
Absolutely. No, I love it. And I also think that setting the vision that people believe in, right? Because sometimes CEOs or leaders, they set a vision that is too far in the future, or not necessarily the goal or the vision doesn't seem to be achievable. So people fully disconnect. So I think that setting a vision that you have the buy-in from your team is a very good start as well, because they got to dream your dream.
Yeah. Not to say dream, right? We still, some ridiculous dreams have come true, but it wasn't just thrown out on the wall. There was a lot of meat behind it. When they threw out these ridiculous dreams, we're going to have this or that business, we're going to do this or that. How are we going to do it? Okay, well, here's the basic heartbeat of it, but you guys are going to make the pieces of it happen. But having a crazy dream is great. That's what makes some dreams that have been amazing come to market. But you've got to invite them in, otherwise you hit the pitfalls, and everyone loses hope, and we get stuck.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm glad that you mentioned KPIs, right? Because it's not only setting the vision, not only setting the goal, but tracking these along the way.
Right.
And in my professional life, I have a kind of a tough transition coming from a very data-driven company to a startup where business was managed by perception. And this hit me so hard because I was like, my goodness, what are the metrics? How are we going to measure success here? So giving the team the metrics to let them know if we are doing right, if we are moving in the right direction, is really important. Otherwise, it's just kind of, as you said, right, kind of throw ideas on the wall and God help us.
Yeah. And sometimes we set KPIs and we don't measure them. And sometimes we set KPIs, but they're not important. How much sales we have? Well, that's great. How much got out the door? And then how much was actually the profit? Because in construction, you can do millions and millions of dollars worth of business and make a tiny bit of profit. And all it takes is a couple of mistakes and you make no profit. And so, what are you measuring that really tells the story? So not only set the proper KPIs, but the frequency of how you check it. And then it should be visible to everybody, not just to the CEO, because everybody's part of the solution, right? So we should have it. This is where real vulnerability comes in. We are not making money. We're doing crazy sales, but we're not making any money. Something's got to change. How do I, in the purchasing department, get to be part of that story? How do I, in the shipping department, get to be part of that story? All these teams can see the truth of what's going on. And if I don't want to see this thing tank, I got to get in part. I got to own it. I got to be part of the process.
Absolutely. And bring people along, because they may come up with ideas that you haven't realized, that you did not have in your radar. But if you let your company, your employees know, hey, we are shooting for profitability, how can we work together? right? And then they will come up with their own ideas that you haven't realized before. So yeah, I love it. I think that having metrics to track the performance and how we are doing towards our direction, towards our vision is really, really, really important. Otherwise, perception, each of us can have our unique perception that will be different from each other and will not necessarily help to get faster to our destination, to our goal.
Let me add one more. A lot of people don't invite employees into the story because the experience they've had before is that these people come in and they just say random stuff and they just get off on tangents and they're just trying to protect their territory and all the bad things that have happened in the past that make a leader say, I don't want to hear from them. Just go do your job. You have to create a culture, a process, a team, a structure that allows everybody to get the best of each other out of each other. Just because you've had bad experiences in the past where this employee was so annoying and this one always came up with ridiculous ideas and this, teach them how to have good ideas, mentor and coach and redirect them, set up rules of engagement for meetings where you don't go off on tangents, where you stay focused on what we're talking about. And that's it. Start and end on time. There are simple things you can do to make a meeting effective, but don't stop having the input of your team just because of your frustrations in the past. You probably didn't manage it right. That's on you as the leader. Take ownership for that. Be accountable, but create an environment where you want a team who can come in and contribute and doesn't get sideways and doesn't exhaust you. Create that opportunity so you don't have to leave them out just because of your past journey.
Wow, my goodness, what a great advice. I have here, Robert, a tattoo that says believe, right? Which is this, believe in people. Oh, you have a past experience, learn from this, but don't stop believing it. Right? You never know. So maybe that person in that day has had a bad day or a situation at home. Who knows? Right? But you can never, as a leader, you can never stop believing in people and teaching and mentoring and kind of a leading by example, as you correctly said, in order to create this culture of experience, which is completely associated with accountability, right? So if each of us is accountable for the experience that we are going to drive to someone else, then we're going to live in a way better world, right? Okay, so we are approaching the end. My goodness, it went so fast. But before we leave, before we wrap up, what are the main takeaways that you want the audience to live with?
This year our theme in our CEO peer groups is living life intentionally. I think we've all got so beat down over the last few years that we just are trying to exist. And the energy level is down, that we're exhausted. And that's our own fault. We overload ourselves all the time-wise, money-wise, health-wise, and it just beats up our emotions. And so I really want to encourage people, you have the right, and you should by all rights, live the life you really want. And if you're not, that's your choice. Nobody's making you live a life a certain way. And if you're not running the company the way you want to run it, change things. It's totally up to you. It's your company. And so if you have a team that is not doing what it's supposed to do, change that. If you have employees that aren't doing it, change that. If you're not leading the way you're supposed to lead, change that. Own it. Because I'm 61 and I want to live another 20, 30 years. I don't know what I got, but I don't want to just exist. I want to impact the world. I want to change people's lives. I want to help serve other business leaders. And I don't want anyone just to optimize the crappy life they ended up with. I want them to step back and say, what do I want my life to look like, which includes my business? And then proactively, through accountability, create the world that they really want. You can do it. I'm doing it. My clients are doing it. And so I encourage you, don't give up. Go back and say, am I living the life I really want? And if I'm not, what am I willing to do about it? And there's a lot of opportunity once you own that.
Wow, what a great advice and a great way of kind of wrapping things up. Definitely. You got to live the life you love and love the life you live. That's it. I can agree more with you. That's the decision I made. I took kind of a last year, say I'm going to change my life. And I can tell you, it went 180 degrees. I completely changed. And I feel so much better, lighter, empowered. Yeah, so you are definitely the protagonist of your life. You got to make your decisions, own it, and be accountable for that. Robert, what such an honor to have you here. I can't thank you enough for sharing with me and with the audience all of your wisdom, everything around accountability and energizing the team kind of in this early morning on Wednesday. So thank you so much for taking the time and being here with me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.